I mean, I guess generally my work kind of encompasses, performance, sound, video, and most importantly, text, language, writing, kind of variations of that. And yeah, and I didn't always make work about farming, or I wasn't always farming. So when I came back to live in Ireland in 2008, I decided to start a farm. I mean, basically I came back with a family and we needed an extra income, and there was probably a fair amount of dreaminess in it as well. My father was a farmer, tillage farmer. They were spraying a lot around the land, around the house, and I did an organic course and different stuff like that, and I decided to buy sheep, and I really went full force. I bought 30 breeding ewes, and I went to England and bought these black and white sheep called Zwartables. They're a Dutch breed, a dairy breed. I bought 4 of those. Those were my art sheep. They were the expensive ones. I made these pieces in 2011. There's 9 of them for a performance called Mountain, and they're made out of Zwartables wool, which is a Dutch dairy breed of sheep, and I did everything. So I thought, except for shearing the sheep. So again, it was like a learning experience. I didn't know how to felt. I just was interested in felting as this kind of ancient art form that was like, used to make tents in Kazakhstan, and they used to drag it around with horses on rolls and stuff. It was very rough. You didn't need very much materials to make it, or instruments to make it. No needles, no. And so I met a woman called Carmen Sanchez, who's a felt maker in Wexford, and we worked together. So I washed the wool in my bath, figured out how to dry it, store it, card it, and then I went to her with it, and we worked together to make that. And all I can say is that it's not as easy to felt raw wool as it is to felt wool that you buy for felting. It's really rough. And I mean, we were getting to the stage where I was going, why the hell did I invent that I had to make 9 of these things? And she was going, I'm not doing this anymore. And we had to kind of like, get in friends and everything. So it became this social thing, which actually by accident is how felt works really, because you need a lot of people to make it. So that's actually quite big for a felt work. And I would know now that if I was making bigger works, I'd make them in pieces, for example. But I suppose the other thing to say about that is that there's also this thing going on in my work that has to do with language and actually making language become a form. So I think this piece was quite interesting that, the Arts Council decided to purchase this piece because the purchase was made during the pandemic, and this idea of form is destroyed is quite like quite a strong kind of image that I hadn't really thought about. Suddenly everything is online and there's nothing kind of in the world, just seems to become a digital kind of formless place. So I thought that was interesting about it as well. The thing that affected me a lot was the fact that I thought I didn't like openings and I didn't like the social aspect of art and everything like that. And suddenly I was like, I so much want to go meet my colleagues, celebrate somebody's opening. It also affected me a lot because my work is totally collaborative. So I work with musicians, I work with sound people, I work with video, I work with actors. So I had to kind of adapt even my work to do much more writing, which probably will affect how I work in the future. So I always feel like every 10 years is kind of a turn. So I've 10 years farming. Sheep are addictive, so I don't know how that's going to pan out for me. you know, sometimes I think that has to go because, I mean, just even getting here for this interview was like, you know, there's always some sheep doing something that means that you can't leave. Yeah, I guess the most important thing for me about being in the Arts Council collection is a kind of homecoming, a little bit, because I kind of built up my career in Belgium and stuff like that, so I'm really happy to be recognised here where I grew up in a certain way, and it feels like some kind of recognition that the work is bought for the collection. And then there's a kind of a like humorous aspect to it as well, because I do know that when I was making these felts that I was thinking about, how do I make wool have worth? How can this material that's worth, I could nearly use bad language, but that's worth nothing, beginning with S, like how could that have worth? So by bringing it into the art world, you kind of give it more worth than worth somehow, because like I guess the whole thing with one aspect of breeding sheep is that I'm actually breeding pedigree sheep. So it's kind of a lottery, like I'm doing genetic recording, I'm doing all that, and so you have worth in pedigree sheep that kind of goes up and down, and you go to the mart and it's in an auction and you'll get so much for a sheep, and then you might have a really good ram that'll like gain more. So just the idea that using the wool, which is worth nothing, into an artwork just resonated for me in every way, even politically, like the, you know, farmers, they can't even pay the shearer. This year particularly, the wool price is totally rock bottom. They can't even pay a shearer for the price they get for the wool. So I have the wool for the last 2 years all stashed away in a shed at home, and it'll probably find a home in one or other exhibition soon.